Ever since I can remember, water has been my refuge, a medium through which I found peace and a sense of belonging. It wasn't just any body of water that called to me, but a particular secluded lake located to the west of my hometown. This hidden gem, cradled by dense forests and accessible only through a narrow lay-by off the motorway, was a world apart from the hustle and bustle of daily life. It was here, amidst the whispering trees and the gentle caress of the wind, that I felt most at home. My fascination with paddleboarding had led me to discover this secluded spot, which quickly became my sanctuary. The lake, hardly known and rarely visited, offered a sense of solitude and peace that was hard to find elsewhere. The water, usually glassy and calm, reflected the changing skies above, while the surrounding forest stood as a silent guardian, its dense foliage a barrier against the outside world. Each visit to the lake was a ritual. I would unload my paddleboard from the car, carry it to the water's edge, and then, with a few strong pushes, glide into the embrace of the lake. The rhythm of paddling, the sound of water lapping against the board, and the occasional call of a distant bird were the only companions to my thoughts. It was a time for reflection, for letting go of worries and immersing myself in the moment. The lake's beauty was not just in its tranquility, but also in the subtle changes it underwent with the passing hours and seasons. Sunsets were particularly magical, painting the sky in hues of orange, pink, and purple, transforming the water into a canvas of ever-changing colors. Early mornings brought a mist that hovered over the surface, creating an ethereal landscape that seemed to belong to another world. But it wasn't just the beauty of the place that drew me back time and again. It was the sense of connection to something greater than myself, a reminder of the natural world's power and mystery. In the stillness of the lake, I found a deep sense of inner peace, a respite from the chaos of modern life. This lake, my sanctuary, was a place where I could be alone, but never lonely, surrounded by nature's embrace. It was a source of inspiration and strength, a reminder of the simplicity and beauty that could still be found in the world. Little did I know, however, that this peaceful retreat would soon become the setting for an encounter that would shake the very foundation of my tranquility. The day that would forever alter my perception of the lake began like any other, with the anticipation of solitude and the calming embrace of nature. The sun was already making its descent, casting long shadows and painting the sky in a warm golden hue as I arrived. The familiar ritual of unloading my paddleboard and stepping into the cool, welcoming waters unfolded seamlessly, a practice dance that marked the beginning of my escape from the outside world. As I paddled away from the shore, the stresses of daily life began to melt away, replaced by the serene beauty of my surroundings. The water was exceptionally calm that day, mirroring the sky above in a perfect reflection that made it hard to tell where one ended and the other began. It was in this tranquil setting that I first noticed the figure on the shore. At a glance, it seemed inconsequential, a lone figure, perhaps a fisherman or a fellow nature lover, enjoying the beauty of the lake. But as I continued to paddle, a subtle shift in the atmosphere caught my attention. The figure was not merely observing. There was an intensity to his gaze, a focused attention that felt unsettling. His presence was an anomaly in my sanctuary, a stark contrast to the usual solitude I found here. Curiosity mixed with unease as I observed him from a distance. He was dressed oddly, in clothes that seemed tattered and worn, as if he had been living in the wilderness. His movements were erratic, pacing back and forth along the water's edge, his gaze never straying from my direction. The peaceful ambiance of the lake was suddenly pierced by his voice, calling out to me in a tone that was both commanding and desperate. The name he shouted, Dessie, felt foreign yet menacing, echoing across the water and shattering the silence. I attempted to steer my paddleboard away, hoping to put distance between us, but my efforts only seemed to fuel his determination. Dessie began to follow my path along the bank, his shouts growing louder, more insistent. The solitude I cherished was now invaded by a sense of danger, transforming my place of refuge into a stage for an unsettling drama. His claims over the lake, shouted with a mix of anger and entitlement, were bewildering. Dessie's declaration that I was trespassing in his domain, that the waters belonged to him, sent a ripple of fear through me. The serene landscape around me took on a menacing edge, the shadows of the trees seeming to close in. I paddled faster, hoping to escape his presence, but the realization dawned on me that I was no longer safe. The lake, my sanctuary, had become the setting for an unforeseen threat, with Dessie as the harbinger of danger. As the sun dipped lower, casting everything into twilight, the confrontation escalated. Dessie's proximity and his evident willingness to enter the water in pursuit of me marked a turning point. My sanctuary was desecrated, the peace shattered by the intrusion of a man whose intentions were as unclear as they were frightening. It was in this moment of heightened fear that I called upon a memory, a story of protection and guardianship associated with the lake, a plea to an entity my rational mind had always dismissed as folklore. Little did I know, my call for help would not go unanswered. As the confrontation with Dessie escalated, the serene evening air grew thick with tension. The once calming solitude of the lake was now pierced by the sharp edge of fear, transforming it into a battleground of wills. Dessie's erratic behavior and aggressive posturing had escalated beyond mere threats. His actions now signaled a clear intent to harm. The distant shore, with its dense forest, seemed to recede further into the background, leaving me exposed and vulnerable on the open water. My attempts to distance myself from Dessie became increasingly frantic. Each stroke of the paddle felt heavy, as if the water itself had thickened in response to the danger. Dessie's shouts grew more belligerent, echoing across the lake with a chilling resonance. He proclaimed the lake as his own, issuing dire warnings of the consequences of my trespassing. The surreal nature of his claims, juxtaposed against the idyllic setting of the lake, created a dissonance that was hard to grasp. Here was a man, unraveled by his own delusions, asserting dominion over nature itself. As the sun's final rays vanished, replaced by the creeping shadows of twilight, Dessie's silhouette took on a more menacing aspect. He began to wade into the water, his movements deliberate, as if he were being drawn by some unseen force towards me. Panic surged within me, a primal response to the imminent threat. My mind raced, searching for a way out, a means to protect myself from the unfolding danger. It was in this moment of desperation that I remembered the tales my grandmother had shared with me, stories of the lake and its guardian spirit. Sinking Suzie. With rational thought giving way to instinct, I called out to the lake, invoking the name of sinking Suzie in a plea for protection. The words felt strange on my lips, a mixture of hope and disbelief coloring my urgent request. The idea that a spirit of folklore might answer my call seemed far-fetched, a grasp at straws in a situation that seemed increasingly dire. Yet, there was a part of me, perhaps influenced by the stories of my youth or the mystical ambience of the lake, that held onto a sliver of hope. The lake's response was immediate and uncanny. The water around Dessie began to churn, not violently, but with a purposeful force that seemed to emanate from the depths. It was as if the lake itself had recognized the threat Dessie posed, not just to me, but to the sanctity of its waters. The rippling surface coalesced into gentle whirlpools around his legs, slowing his advance, as though invisible hands were pulling at him, urging him to retreat. Dessie's reaction was one of confusion and terror. His shouts turned to cries of alarm as he struggled against the pull of the water. The aggression that had fueled his pursuit dissipated, replaced by a primal fear of the unknown force that now seemed to dominate him. For a moment, the roles were reversed. He was the one seeking escape, flailing against a power he could not comprehend. As I watched, transfixed by the scene unfolding before me, a profound realization dawned on me. The lake, my sanctuary, was not a passive backdrop to my life, but a living entity with its own will and power. In calling upon sinking Suzie, I had not just invoked a tale from my childhood, but had connected with the essence of the lake itself. The boundary between legend and reality blurred, leaving me in awe of the natural world and its unseen forces. With Dessie momentarily halted by the lake's intervention, I seized the opportunity to put distance between us. My paddle strokes were fueled by a newfound urgency, each one carrying me closer to the safety of the shore. The fear that had clutched at my heart began to recede, replaced by a cautious optimism. Perhaps, I thought, the spirit of the lake had indeed answered my call, offering protection in my moment of need. As I made my way to the safety of the shore, the adrenaline that had surged through my veins began to ebb, replaced by a profound sense of awe and disbelief. The encounter with Dessie, under the cloak of twilight, had transformed from a tangible threat into something almost ethereal. The lake, which had served as my sanctuary, had revealed its hidden depths, not just of water, but of spirit and power. The calm that followed the churning waters felt like a cleansing, a renewal of the sacred pact between the lake and those who sought its solace. Standing on the firm ground, I looked back at the now placid surface of the lake, struggling to reconcile the tranquility before me with the chaos that had unfolded moments earlier. The darkness of the night enveloped the water, hiding its secrets just as effectively as the stories of old. The entity I had called upon, sinking Suzie, felt both incredibly real and like a figment of my imagination. A guardian spirit born from the depths of the lake, or perhaps from the depths of my own mind. The experience left me with a lingering sense of connection to the lake that went beyond the physical. It was as if the water had become a mirror, reflecting not just the stars above, but the complex interplay of fear, faith, and the unseen forces that shape our world. Dessie's absence, whether he had retreated in fear or been swallowed by the lake's mysterious power, served as a stark reminder of the respect demanded by nature. The boundary between the known and the unknown had been blurred, leaving me with a deeper appreciation for the mysteries that lay just beyond our understanding. In the days that followed, I found myself drawn back to the lake, compelled by a desire to understand what had happened. The water offered no answers, its surface as inscrutable as ever, but the peace I had once taken for granted now carried a new depth. The lake was no longer just a place of refuge from the world. It was a reminder of the world's wonder, a tangible connection to the myths and spirits that dwell in the spaces between reality and imagination. Reflecting on the encounter, I realized that the true power of the lake lay not in the legend of sinking Suzie or in the supernatural intervention I had experienced. Instead, it was in the lake's ability to reflect back the parts of ourselves and our stories that we often overlook, the fears, the hopes, and the profound connection we share with the natural world. My paddleboard, once just a means to explore the physical space of the lake, had become a vessel for navigating the complexities of my own beliefs and experiences. As I prepared to leave, the lake's stillness seemed to whisper a farewell, a silent acknowledgement of the bond formed in the face of adversity. I knew I would return, not just for the peace and solitude, but for the sense of wonder and the reminder of life's mysteries that the lake had awakened in me. The encounter with Dessie and the intervention of sinking Suzie had forever changed my relationship with this place. The lake, with all its beauty and enigma, had become a symbol of the unexpected violence that can pierce our peaceful retreats, but also of the strength and protection that can emerge in our darkest moments.